I've always been a big fan of spoof comedies, and I think Naked Gun is probably my favorite. Airplane is probably a close second, but I think at least for me, Naked Gun is the best. And on top of that, it's a great LA movie. There's a lot of really cool LA locations in Naked Gun, and I don't care what you say, Leslie Nielsen is a comedic genius. So today we're checking out filming locations for the 1988 comedy, Naked Gun. Let's go see what we can find. The movie begins in Beirut, where some of the world's most notorious leaders are meeting inside this building to plan an attack against the United States. However, that building is actually located in Glendale, California, inside Brand Park. And I gotta say, they had me completely fooled with this one. I had no idea that this building was located in Glendale or even in the United States. And you could see right here, the building looks almost exactly like it did in the movie. This is really cool to see in person. So right over there across the water, that's Al Larson Boats, and that's where Nordberg is snooping around on the docks. It might be a little hard to see, but this tall building right here, along with the building just to the right of it, those can be seen in the opening shot. And the boat that he's looking at, I Love You, that would have been in the water right there. When Nordberg is watching the boat, he's ducked down behind a green box that says Al Larson on it. Al Larson Boats. After finding out that his girl has left him and ran off with another guy, Frank is driving and reminiscing about her, talking about how he can't get her off his mind, and we get a quick shot of the San Onofre nuclear power plant. I can't believe I just drove all the way down here for that shot. This is the building that was used as the hospital where Nordberg's recovering after his many accidents at the beginning of the movie. After Ed picks up Frank from the airport, they come here to visit Nordberg, and we see the car pull up right here in front, pulling all of the luggage cars. The press conference about the Queen's arrival, where Frank forgets he has his microphone on and goes to the restroom, takes place at Los Angeles City Hall. When Frank and Ed go down to the docks to investigate the attack on Nordberg, of course, we're right back here at Al Larson Boats. The police car would have pulled up right here in front of this building, and that's where the guy was fishing off the dock, and Frank pulls up and knocks the guy into the water. And then when they get out of the police car, the camera shoots this way, and you can see the Vincent Thomas Bridge behind them. Frank heads over to Ludwig Towers to pay a visit to Vincent Ludwig. The camera starts at the top and then pans down to show us the entire building. We see Frank coming around the corner. In reality, this building was originally built as the main headquarters for the Elks. The Elks later sold it and it became the Park Plaza Hotel. Frank comes around the corner and then pulls up right in front of the hotel, knocking the van out of the way. You can see the hotel is currently under construction. It's undergoing a full renovation and it's going to become the MacArthur. This was used for the police station, but it's actually the Department of Water and Power. So Frank pulls in that driveway on the far end, and it looks a bit different because there's a school there now. So those two staircases that you see behind him, those are no longer there. He then veers towards the building and parks, and he gets out and he's walking alongside the building right there, and that's when his car comes chasing after him. So I came around to the other side. This is the driveway that Frank would have pulled into. Now that's pretty much the shot that we get of his car driving off with the airbags deployed. And we actually see it headed right for that security guard shack. And it's kind of hard to see, but I zoomed in through the fence, and right there, that would have been the entrance to the police station. This is where the graffiti-proof wall would have been, and of course it was just placed there for the movie, and it's actually a couple miles away from where the police station was. Frank returns to the hospital to talk to Nordberg, and he parks in the spot just besides the hospital's front entrance. He runs into a scaffolding and knocks all the workers onto the ground. After Frank finds the doctor trying to kill Nordberg, the doctor goes out the fire escape, and it's not there anymore, but it would have been on one of these windows right here. And then he comes running down. Things look a bit different now because this parking lot wasn't here at the time. This was just part of the street but the doctor comes running out. There would have been an ambulance parked right here. And then Frank comes chasing after him, and you can see this roll-up door and this thin window behind Frank. And then Frank stops the car, which ends up being a student driver, and that was right here. And this is on a different side of the building. They ended up using 3 different sides of this building for the hospital. As they're chasing after the doctor, student driver Stephanie accidentally turns down a one-way street, and that was actually the road that used to take you into the LA River underneath the 6th Street Bridge. And that would have been right here, but it doesn't exist anymore. They tore down the 6th Street Bridge, and they're currently rebuilding it. They then see the doctor pass by with the 4th Street Bridge in the background behind him, and that happened right here. You can no longer see the 4th Street Bridge because this newer apartment building blocks it, but the bridge is still there. Frank then tells Stephanie to step on it, and they make a left turn onto Willow Street. And as the doctor is trying to get away from Frank, he's driving down the street right here when he all of a sudden sees a gas truck in front of him. Now this area looks a lot different. All of these buildings have changed. You would have saw a bit of the 6th Street Bridge in the distance, and you can see a bit of the new 6th Street Bridge right there. The camera is then shooting this way to get a shot of the doctor coming towards the gas truck. And again, you can see the 4th Street Bridge behind him, which you can no longer see because of this apartment building. But if we turn the camera just a bit, you can see the 4th Street Bridge. It's still there. And as the doctor's approaching the 1st Street Bridge, he crashes into the guy that's transporting the missile. The doctor's now traveling down Hewitt Street, headed towards 3rd Street, and he passes right by this building on the right side. But that factory that we see in the background, that's no longer here. You can also see a bit of this building behind him. And the final part of the gag happens right here when the doctor crashes into the fireworks factory, Feldman Fireworks. And all of the buildings right here surrounding the fireworks factory still look exactly the same. But the view looking down the street, that looks a lot different. Most of the buildings here have changed. This is where Frank would have been standing, telling the crowd that there's nothing to see here. Although that building on the corner, that can be seen in the background behind Frank. The Downtowner Motel on Hollywood Boulevard. This is where Frank is walking and gathering his thoughts and just trying to get a grasp on the case. We see him walking away from the motel sign. He's walking past all these storefronts on the left side. However, this tree now blocks the sign for the motel. As he continues walking down the street, he stops and he quickly realizes that he has no idea where he is. That scene was filmed at the Hollywood Bowl Overlook, and you can see it looks a bit different. There's now a parking lot, and it's more of a proper viewing spot. However, the problem with the Hollywood Bowl Overlook is it's been closed for a really long time now. You can see it's supposed to be open right now, but the gates are all locked up. When Jane and Frank are on their date getting hot dogs in the park, to me that appears to be MacArthur Park. However, it's kind of hard to tell because paths have changed due to construction. Things have been added and taken away. So I could be wrong, but to me that looks like MacArthur Park. This is the theater where Frank and Jane see the movie. Pay attention to that sign on the right for La Fonda. A bit of it can be seen as they're walking out of the theater. You can see it right there behind them. They would have come walking out of the front of the theater, which you can see is currently gated off. The camera pans up and shows the marquee, and we find out that they just watched Platoon, and of course they're the only ones laughing and having a good time. At the end of the date montage, Frank walks Jane home, and this apartment building was used as Jane's place. This building is just a couple of blocks off of Hollywood Boulevard, and right around the corner from the Downtowner Motel that we see Frank walking in front of a bit earlier. Jane stands here talking to Frank, and you can see this brick pillar behind her with the lamp on top of it. The brick pillar is still there, however the lamp is gone, but I believe it was just recently removed because if you look, you can still see the wires sticking out from where the lamp used to be. Jane watches as Frank walks off towards Hollywood Boulevard, And right there by that driveway, that's where he does the little jump and heel tap. Once Frank suspects that Ludwig might somehow be involved, Frank and Ed return to Ludwig Towers. They park across the street and enjoy some pistachios while staking out the building, waiting for Ludwig to leave. A limo pulls up out front. They see Ludwig get inside, and Frank decides to make his move. Their car would have been parked right here, and this is where that giant pile of pistachio nut shells would have been. Of course, Frank gets in a bit of trouble, and he ends up on the ledge of the hotel, hanging from some of the statues. Now, if you've seen the movie, you know these are not the same statues that Frank is hanging from. Where this newer building now is, this is supposedly the former location of the Ludwig meatpacking plant, home of the Dugout Dog, but unfortunately that building is long gone. It was replaced with this studio, which is Tube Science, a business that makes internet ads. So there's not really a lot here to match up. However, the building that used to be here was definitely used in the movie They Live, and there's a couple of shots during the battle with the police where you can see some tanks in the background that match up perfectly with the ones that we see at the meatpacking plant. Also, notice those windows on the brick building with the arches above them. You can see windows just like that in They Live. So I'm pretty sure this is the right location. What I do know is one of my favorite jokes in the movie takes place during that scene.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Don't fire the gun while you're talking.
This is the former location of the Ambassador Hotel, and I've shown it to you a few times because it was used in a lot of different movies, and this is where they had the welcoming party for the Queen. I can't say 100% that they filmed the interiors at the Ambassador as well, but I know the exteriors were filmed at the Ambassador. Unfortunately, the hotel was torn down sometime around 2006. The end of our movie takes place at Angels Stadium in Anaheim, but in real life it was filmed at Dodger Stadium, home of the Los Angeles Dodgers. And there's a few reasons for that, according to some articles that I read. Number one, the Dodgers had no problem renting out the stadium for filming, but they didn't want the Dodgers name being used. They didn't want the team to be involved at all. And I guess the main reason is because of the on-field brawl that takes place. They didn't want the Dodgers associated with that. Now, the reason why they used the Seattle Mariners as one of the two teams is supposedly Major League Baseball said that they had to use the Mariners. They said the team needed some exposure. And as far as them using the California Angels, I guess it just makes sense. The movie's filmed in Southern California, so if they're not going to use the Dodgers, they would use the California Angels. Now, the only two Major League Baseball players to appear in the movie are Jay Johnstone and Reggie Jackson. Johnstone never played for the Mariners. Jackson did play for the Angels, however, both players were already retired at that time. A lot of scenes were filmed out here on this field, especially right there on the infield. That's where Frank pretends to be Enrico Palazzo and sings the national anthem. That's also where Frank dresses up like an umpire so he can pat down all of the players. And right there behind the dugout, that's where the special section was, where the Queen was sitting. It was right there between first and second base where they're trying to get the guy out, but then Frank gets involved and ends up throwing the ball back and forth with the players. The Jumbotron was also featured a lot in the movie. Again, that's where you see Frank singing the national anthem. That's also where they show the baseball bloopers. After Frank stops Reggie Jackson from assassinating the Queen, he gets recognized as Enrico Palazzo by Francis.
Hey, it's Enrico Palazzo!
He then notices that Ludwig has taken Jane hostage and he chases after him. Right up there is where the standoff takes place between Ludwig and Frank. Unfortunately, we can't get up there right now because that section is currently closed off. But if we look over here, you can see the downtown LA skyline, and that can actually be seen behind Ludwig while he's holding Jane hostage. It's a bit covered by trees now, but you get the idea. After Frank shoots Ludwig in the neck with the tranquilizer dart, this is where he falls from the top of the stadium into the parking lot below, and he's run over by the bus and the steamroller and trampled by the marching band. But as you can see, that was obviously not filmed here because there's no parking lot. This is actually an entrance to the stadium. That scene was most likely filmed in a studio somewhere. I'll leave you with this beautiful shot of downtown Los Angeles taken from the parking lot of Dodger Stadium. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.